in instituting the suit, as the governors failed to issue the statutorily required 3-month pre-action notice to the clerk of the National Assembly. It also argued that the plaintiffs did not secure resolutions from their respective state houses of assembly, a prerequisite for approaching the Supreme Court. So with what I've read, you can tell that even if I read and understand a few things, it's usually better if a lawyer says there is, there was, and there will be. Right? It kind of makes sense because I naturally have questions. But what we've gotten from this report so far is that they claim that the suit is procedurally defective and it lacks merit. They claim the Supreme Court lacks jurisdiction to entertain the suit. They say the plaintiffs, which is the governors, failed to give a mandatory 3-month pre-action notice to the clerk of the National Assembly. They said no supporting resolutions were passed by the respective houses of assemblies in the governor's states. And the assembly is seeking 1 billion naira cost against the governors for filing what it called a frivolous and speculative case. So there are 5 very important parts to this report. And the only man that can answer these questions is a man who has gone through, I can't even remember what it's called, but the person who studies law, it came to mind. Anyways, Barrister Jesse Williams is in the studio with me. You're welcome, sir.
All right, good, thank you.
How you doing?
Very fine, thank you.
Okay. So, you have heard the reports, and I'm sure you very likely have seen it in the news. The Assembly is claiming a lot of things, but most importantly, they're asking that the Supreme Court dismisses, discharges, ignores that suit. So if they say that it is procedurally flawed, specifically that no pre-action notice was served and no resolutions were passed by the governor's respective state assemblies, from a legal standpoint, is that a factual position to hold, that the governors must go through that process before approaching the Supreme Court?
The answer is emphatic no.
No.
No. Let me...
Yes, please.
Yes. You know, when you talk about procedure, don't forget that what happened in Rivers State, the proclamation of the state of emergency, is an unforeseen situation.
That's right.
Don't also forget that Mr. President also suspended the State House of Assembly.
Yes.
In the preliminary objection filed by the National Assembly, one of their grounds is that the state assemblies must pass a resolution.
Yeah, for the 11 governors now.
Yeah, for the 11 governors.
Yeah.
You know, I know I'm going to.
Yeah.
The issue of Rivers State is a peculiar one. That's why it's called state of emergency. If you want the 11 PDP governors to serve you pre-action notice, 3 months pre-action notice.
3 months, yeah.
Of what effect is that? That a state of emergency has been declared in a sister state, and the 11 PDP governors rose up to say no. If we don't challenge this, the likelihood that this will extend to us, you know, it's like your neighbor's house is burning. You say, hey, consign them. You forget that fire can spill over to your own house. So the PDP governors proactively approach the Supreme Court to say, look, this is a constitutional matter. Please tell us if the action of Mr. President is right. If it's not right, so what next? So the National Assembly coming to say, oh, the action of the PDP governors is frivolous. Let me even ask, what is frivolous? A process of court is said to be frivolous when it is filed without merit. Does it lie in the National Assembly to determine a matter which they are a party to?
They said the Supreme Court doesn't have jurisdiction to...
That's what I'm saying. Procedurally, that is why they brought in 3 months pre-action notice.
Yeah.
The question is, technicality, gone are the days of technicalities. Something is happening in a state, a particular state is burning. The state that lays the golden egg, like they say, is burning. And you want to be technical. If they have a case, if they feel look, this National Assembly should not, we are trying to forgive them, and they want to put more fire. Now, if they feel what they did is right, is constitutional, what is the fear? Why don't you file your defense?
Barrister Jesse Williams, if the governors did not follow the right procedure, someone has to call it out. Right? Regardless of who it is, whether it's National Assembly, somebody has to have conversations around, while whatever you are pursuing might be valid, you did not file it properly.
You see, let me tell you, Oracle, you remember, a couple of times I'll be here, I've always said this, that the problem with most Nigerian politicians is that they know that this thing they want to do is against the constitution. They will go ahead and do it until you go to court. I am surprised that the National Assembly, who circumvented their constitutional powers, could not come back to talk of procedure. Did they follow procedure when they were doing voice vote in 2/3? Is that what constitution said? Now, what am I saying? You see, they have done the wrong thing. They didn't take, they didn't have recourse to the constitution. They have done the wrong thing. They say I go to court. Now the matter is in court. They have come to realize that there is something called procedure. Did they follow procedure when they were saying the I habit?
Barrister Jesse Williams, two wrongs cannot and will never make it right.
Then which one now do you take? Which wrong?
If it's all wrong, then it should all be.
That is left for the Supreme Court now. National Assembly has erred. Let's also assume that the plaintiff in this case have erred. Let the Supreme Court determine.
The Assembly members will not agree that they've erred.
That's it. But we know. They know. We know. Constitution know. The grand norms have spelled it out that they didn't do the right thing.
Okay. Is there any validity? Right. Let's look away from the prayers. Let's look away from what the governors are asking the Supreme Court. These things that they have listed, the Supreme Court lacking jurisdiction, the resolution has to be passed by respective houses of assembly in the governor state. Is there validity to these points they are making?
See, if you say the issue of jurisdiction, what are we talking about here? The Constitution have said matters between the states and the federal government can go to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
And this is one of those. In fact, this is not just a state. This is 11 states put together against the federal government. What jurisdiction are they talking about?
Are there any other courts that have the power to hear those matters?
No.
Only the Supreme Court?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's a constitutional matter, and it's a matter involving states and the federal.
Okay. So that one is out.
It has to start with the Supreme Court and end with the Supreme Court.
Okay. So for getting a resolution by the respective houses of assembly in the governor state, is that a requirement?
What section of the law? Let me tell you, when processes are filed by the plaintiff and the defendant or respondent, as case may be, files his defense. I don't like jumping into what social media says. I want to see if that is a ground. If the 3 months pre-action notice is a ground, I want to see which law says that, so that I will know I will be properly guided.
Well, the angle that I can take this from is that the 3-month pre-action notice will have political implications, maybe not legal. Because while you're trying to contest an emergency rule, 3 months is a long time.
That is exactly what I told you. That the National Assembly haven't done the wrong thing. Now, they now want to compel the plaintiff here to start doing the right thing. But they carefully refuse to do the right thing. Perhaps they know that this clause, this 3 months pre-action notice is there. And we're talking of emergency situation. But where you are supposed to listen and obey the Constitution, you deliberately abandoned it. And now you have come back. I didn't know National Assembly still know what the letters of the Supreme of the Constitution. I didn't know when they were saying, "Hey, have it" as voice vote against what the Constitution says. You see, Oracle. Like you said, two wrongs cannot make a right. But the point that in Nigeria, that is the greatest problem we have. That you know that this thing you want to do is wrong. You want to do it, you go ahead and do it, and expect the other person to, in course of defending himself, to start doing the right thing.
However, Sir Williams, if we call the members of our legislature lawmakers, the least we can expect is that they know the law.
Yes, that's correct.
So I believe they do know the law. We have a break coming up. After that break, you get to be a part of the conversation. For now, you can send messages to our WhatsApp and maybe even call that WhatsApp number. That's how we take your responses. Please stay with us. back. It's still Hard Facts, 92.3 Nigeria Info. Sam Oracle Chinedu here. And I still have my guest, Barrister J.C. Williams, in the studio with me. You're welcome once again, sir.
Thank you, my brother.
Our conversation for this hour is about the National Assembly, the Supreme Court, and 11 PDP governors. The Assembly is urging the Supreme Court to dismiss the suit filed by the PDP governors challenging the declaration of a state of emergency in Rivers State. The Assembly, in its response, said the suit is procedurally flawed and lacked merit. And they said many other things, that the Supreme Court lacks the jurisdiction to entertain it. The plaintiffs failed to give a mandatory 3-month pre-action notice to the clerk of the Assembly. No supporting resolutions were passed by the respective houses of assembly in the governor states. And the Assembly is also seeking a 1 billion naira cost against the governors for filing what it calls a frivolous and speculative case. Well, the numbers to reach us via WhatsApp is 080-903-06416. You can also call that number on WhatsApp only. Not a regular call, but just WhatsApp. Let's see if we can take those calls. I seem to have Clinton. Hello, Clinton. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, my brother.
Okay, that's amazing. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening to your guest.
Good evening,
my brother.
Yeah, I want to say that the National Assembly acted rightly.
Okay.
Why am I saying this? Because these governors in question, what is their own legal standing? What legal standing do they have? Are they indigents of Rivers State? Are they residents of Rivers State? Do they even preside over Rivers State matters? By all standards, I see them as meddlesome interlopers in this case. Now, I don't want them to truncate the peace process that is going on in Rivers State. Because the Constitution of Nigeria clearly stated in Section 305 empowers the president with the backing of the National Assembly to declare a state of emergency. Ask them this question: where were these governors when the tension in Rivers State was to high heavens? Did they make any statement? What was their own moves towards restoring peace in Rivers State? Today, normalcy have returned to Rivers State, and we are even praying that Mr. President should look for a way and bring back our governor. These processes that they are trying to initiate now will further truncate the matter. So we don't want that for our state. We want peace to return to our state.
Okay, Clinton.
Thank you very much.
No, hold on, Clinton. Hold on. Now, to partially answer your question based on the knowledge that I have, the governors are asking the court to determine whether the president of Nigeria can lawfully suspend or interfere with the offices of a governor and deputy governor and replace them with an unelected appointee. So if that's what they're asking the Supreme Court, they don't have to be from River State. They don't have to be interested in the case of River State.
The National Assembly are stating that there is a procedure for that, and they have not followed those procedures. So their matter is lacking merit and should be discountenanced.
The Assembly did not speak to the suspension of a governor. It did not speak to that. I'm certain, at least to the best of my knowledge, unless you can prove to me that my knowledge is limited.
By virtue of that interpretation, they are asking the court to discredit the decision of Mr. President. That if they interpret now in affirmative, what will be their move?
Well, I can't say that's what they're asking the court, even though we know that's where they're going. But if people went to the court to say, please tell us if a president can suspend a governor, right? I think that's a valid stand, regardless of what you support. Governors, I think, have the right to ask the Supreme Court to interpret the Constitution and tell them how.
Well, let's wait for the court to determine that. Let's just wait for the court.
Okay, well, the Assembly members, thank you very much, do not even want it to get to the court. With this move they've made, they are hoping that the court does not have... Professor Williams, would you like to respond to what he said?
You responded partially. Every Nigerian citizen has the right to go to court. Now, in the case of the 11 governors, don't forget that we are talking about state governor here. That was suspended. The plaintiff in this matter were merely asking the Supreme Court, please interpret by virtue of Section 305. We are not talking about declaration of state of emergency. That one is there. But the Constitution is there. Mr. President, does he have another Constitution that we do not have, that empowers him to appoint, to suspend a governor, elected governor, deputy governor, suspend a state legislature, and then appointed somebody. That is what the plaintiff are asking. They are not asking the court to say, oh, that the president does not have power to declare state of emergency. Even if the one of Rivers was declared in error, we're not talking about that now. What we're talking about, do you have the constitutional powers to appoint, to suspend and appoint? If the answer is in the negative, then of course the court will do the needful.
Okay. Well, let's go back to those phone lines. Remember that you can only for now call us via WhatsApp. That's 080-903-06416. Mufasa seems to be on the phone. Hello, Mufasa.
Yeah, hi, Sam. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
Oh, yeah, good evening. Good afternoon. I want to equally salute your guests.
Thank you.
I think you have spoken well. I think there's a saying that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So I think the governors have every right to approach the court for interpretation of Section 305 of the Constitution, because that has actually caused a lot of back and forth, and confusion, especially as it regards the suspension of an elected governor. And I'm equally worried that it was the PDP governors alone that went to court to seek interpretation. And what we don't even understand is the fact that this is more or less a dangerous precedent that this administration is setting, that the president can just wake up and arbitrarily suspend an elected governor. So for me, these governors, they've taken a bold step. One could have expected that even the PDP members who are equally members of the National Assembly to support their own. So, but we have a National Assembly that has both PDP, APC, APGA, and all of that. But when it comes to this issue, they don't even look at, party difference. That goes to show that they don't even care about anybody other than themselves. You understand what I'm saying? Because if we have people who are PDP members in the National Assembly and we have PDP governors going to court to seek interpretation, and this National Assembly is trying to, stampede the process with whatever excuses they are giving, it leaves so much to be desired in the minds of right-thinking members of society. But then again, I think they should allow the Supreme Court to decide whether the process is, it does not match the requirement for it to get to the Supreme Court. It is not for the House of Assembly, not the National Assembly, to determine whether the process was faulty. The Supreme Court should decide that. I will wait to hear the final pronouncement from the court.
All right, thank you very much. Remember, you can call 080-903-06416 via WhatsApp. Via WhatsApp alone for now. And let's see, I do have a few messages. Okay. And Emmanuel says that my guest is speaking out of emotions and sentiments rather than law and constitution. She put aside his bias and sentiment and discuss the law. That's interesting. And the next message reads, good afternoon. I thank the lawyer in the studio. When a system is faulty, this is what you get. A rubber stamp assembly making laws. You can see how they are even messing themselves up. Jimmy Pepe from Transamadi says. And next call is from JJ. Good evening, JJ.
Good evening, JJ. Yeah, Sam, good evening.
Good evening. Can you turn off your radio, please?
I greet your guests.
Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, fine. You see, Sam, people say something. That when flood comes and cover the short people, that in less than no time it will also cover the tall people. That's why the tall people who the flood have not covered now have to go to see if it will be covered at the end of the day. If they don't know this interpretation, I tell you, those tall people will become endangered species in less than no time. So whether they are from Kafashano, whether they are from Jamaica, they have gone to the Supreme Court of Nigeria to say, tell us, like you rightly said, the president have a right, according to section 305 and all those sections put together, yes, to declare state of emergency. But does it mean that the tall people will also get swallowed in the process? I think it's...
Oh my. Okay, we apologize for that. The call ended before he was done making his points, but I think that we got a major part of his submission. The National Assembly should allow the Supreme Court decide on the current state of emergency they illegally supported that ousted a democratically elected governor and the State House of Assembly because they acted in error, hence should allow the law take its course. That's from Waike Odinaka. Okay, I have my next call. Hello, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening, what's your name?
Me, Emmanuel calling from Port Harcourt.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, just to lend my voice, the lawyer have rightly, or we should hear, but then I don't know why they are trying to cry more than the bereaved, talking about the lawmakers. Why when they are supposed to do the needful, they didn't do it. Now they are now realize they have made one of the biggest mistakes I've always said, and they are now trying to cry more than the bereaved. Let them allow the Supreme Court to not trying to truncate. It's not going to help any matter. So for me, what they're just making is, I think, let it not be that at the end of the day, Supreme Court will now maybe looking at what they have said and now strike out the challenge based on technicality. We don't want to hear that.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the major thing. Let it not cry more than the bereaved as you start.
All right. Thank you very much, Amidim. Let's see if we can take some messages from our Facebook. Canula Julio says the present National Assembly has nothing to show and the courts are in the pocket of the politicians. That's why their response to issues is always go to court. Cosmo says, Sam, please, we don't have National Assembly. What we have are liabilities. We do have National Assembly. You might be displeased with their actions, but we do have Assembly members. Ihai Kingsley says, which National Assembly are you talking of? The only National Assembly that don't know their constitutional rights, they are now representing their stomach, not the people. Augustus Jongo Manila says, who gave the National Assembly such right over the judiciary? Well, they are not mandating, they are just asking that the court throws the case out the window. Also, Francis Namani, I can see your comment. Thank you very much. Clever Sonny says, your guest has said it all. Let us wait for the Supreme Court to decide for us. I rest my case. Right, Sir Williams?
Yes.
People are divided along lines of opinions.
Yes. You remember one of my interviews here. I said emphatically that His Excellency Governor Siminala Efubara should not go to court.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yes. Do you know why I said so? Fubara, as a person, if he wanted to go to court on this matter, he would have started with Federal High Court. Because he's an individual. And what they would have done is that, of course, that matter can be in Federal High Court for 20 years, as the case may be. And then even when the 6 months period would have expired, they would tell him, the president would have said, the matter is sub judice. We will extend it since the matter is in court. The PDP governors is like 11 states put together. You know, I know some persons will likely react to what I'm going to say now. Remember that somebody in Nigeria at some point said that anybody who tries to challenge his structure, any governor who tries to challenge his structure in Rivers State, that he will set fire in their states. Let me know the implication of that and why the 11 PDP governors have to do what they are doing.
That was a response to something.
Yes, I'm telling you. Response is a statement.
Okay, so just to clarify that, he was responding to something.
Yes, responding to something and you have made a statement. If the PDP governors didn't go to court to ensure that the constitution of Nigeria is followed, Do you know what would happen to them?
Tell me.
There will be fire in their states. And of course, that will be an opportunity to keep declaring state of emergencies.
No, but Barrister Williams.
Oracle, I am telling you that. No, there's nothing. You don't have any defense on that.
No, it's not. It's not a defense. It is about the.
I am telling you a strategy that is working already.
No, wait.
See what is happening in Bayelsa. See what is happening in Bayelsa. It's just our neighbor here. See what is happening. It's the same thing. That fire is about to get into Bayelsa, and the next thing you hear is state of emergency, just to clear course for 2027.
Okay.
That's the truth.
Now, Barrister Williams, we cannot deny the fact that Rivers State is a peculiar state, right?
Yes.
You get to hear about the struggle and the fight over inheritance from rich families.
That's correct.
A family that is poor does not have the luxury of fighting over father's will. So, Rivers State has positioned itself as a state of interest to the entire nation, because that treasure base of the nation is not from out. The resources from here can sustain 2 countries.
That's correct.
That's not an exaggeration. So the interest in Rivers State obviously is around the resources of the state.
That's correct.
So many of these other PDP states, represented by their 11 governors, are not states of interest.
No. I beg
Right?
to I beg to disagree.
No.
I beg to,
It's
see, let me tell you
true.
something. Oracle, when you're talking of politics and election, even the poorest of the states is very important.
Well,
Yeah, we are not talking. See, resources. If you're talking of Nigerian resources today, we know the state that lays the golden egg. That is not. It's not negotiable. But for what is happening now is battle for 2027. Let me tell you what. If the 11 PDP state governors, if there is fire in their states and state of emergency is declared, and the governors are suspended, and the sole administrator is appointed as is appointed in Rivers State, tell me who is contesting against them?
I get your position. My position is, if we're talking politically, and if we want to allow the assumption be true in our heads, you might not need to go as far as a state of emergency to capture some of those states, right? The dismantling of structure in some cases can do the job. See what's happening in Delta.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Right?
See, no. Strategy is not a one-way traffic.
Dismantling of structure.
The strategy. See, Delta. When you're talking of the state that lays golden egg, Delta is also one of them.
Yes.
And let me tell you, strategy may differ. For the Niger Delta states, do you even know why the governor of Delta? Oracle, let's not go there. But let me tell you, strategies differ according to the states. But the important thing is that we're talking of constitution here. If it is obvious that the power that be in Abuja, they are seeing the body language of Nigerians that people are not happy. John like Bible say, right from the time of John the Baptist, the kingdom of heaven suffered violence, and the violent take it by force. That's what they want to take it by force. Otherwise, tell me how a Democrat, somebody who calls himself a Democrat, somebody who say he fought for democracy, will circumvent the provision of the constitution, suspend a governor of a state elected by the people, and brought in somebody, not even from the state, brought in somebody who now mans the state. And you say that, look, we are yet to see things. So what the PDP governors are doing, they are just fighting for survival, because otherwise the next thing you will hear, there will be fire in their state. You know, the fire that came in Rivers State is not even fire. What the fire that will get to those PDP governor state, of course, that one, they will even, if possible, they will even tell the governor to go to prison, not even mere suspension. So the point is, what the PDP governors did by going to court, the National Assembly should allow Supreme Court do their work. If the Supreme Court finds merit in their case, good and fine. But people who circumvented the constitution are the ones now talking about procedures. Is it not laughable?
Okay. We'll take 1 or 2 calls, because that's all we can spare with the time we have. I think maybe one, and wrap up this conversation. Remember, the only number you can call for now is 080-903-06416. And my question is simple, even though you've answered before I asked. What do you make of the move by the Assembly? 080-903-06416, and you can only call that number via WhatsApp. So it's just a WhatsApp call and not a regular call. Okay. I seem to... Okay. Let's see. Do I have one here? When the CBN and federal government did the Naira revalidation, some governors went to court and sought for the reversal, and it was granted. The National Assembly are not the ones to determine for the Supreme Court what to do and how to determine the case before them. John from Port Harcourt says, were they sleeping all this while? I'm glad they've woken up from their sleep. Right. I beg your pardon. Night is coming and they'll sleep again. Their quest and journey seem irrelevant. That is from April. Sam, we do not have National Assembly, and the Supreme Court is still under the manipulation of the presidency that declared a state of emergency in Rivers State. I maintain we do have an assembly. Like I said, you might not be satisfied with their actions, but you cannot say we don't have an assembly. If the PDP governor Supreme Court justice is feared, Trump's a fugitive, justice becomes sentiment. Harold Ranta from Opobo Town says, and let's see. Okay, I'm trying to take a call, but it seems that I'm struggling with that. 0817-923-0002. No, sorry, not that one. 080-903-06416. Okay, so I'll just have to wrap up conversations. So like someone asked, if the governors lose, what happens?
What you mean lose? It's a preliminary objection based on procedure or what we call technicality.
Okay.
It could be struck out. And when the matter is struck out for your refusal or negligence to go by the rules before bringing this action,
you can go back and correct.
If it is strike out, you can come back
and do it properly.
The only thing we are looking at, this whole thing arose out of an emergency situation, and it was based on that the National Assembly today, who wants procedures to be followed, circumvented those procedures and granted the president's request and declared the state of emergency. I would have thought that this National Assembly, while doing their work by approving the powers of section in section 305 of the president, I would have thought that this National Assembly would have said, Mr. President, here is overreaching. This constitution didn't give you the power to suspend the governor. I would have thought that they would have done that. But they went to sleep.
There were parts that they objected to.
And what happened? Because the constitution have given them the power to say no. If the National Assembly had said no to this, it wouldn't fly.
So when the state of emergency was declared, the president stated that the sole administrator reports to the Federal Executive Council. The assembly objected and said
they should report to him. That is the interest now.
So the
question
they
is,
have objected to something.
The question exactly, they have objected to something. The question is that what they objected to, was it captured by the constitution? Was there provision for sole administrator in the first place? Even if there was there provision to say governor suspended? You see the point now. President wants sole administrator to report to him. National Assembly for the first time objected. And what was the reason for the objection? No, don't report to Mr. President, report to us. You can imagine River State has become a property that two people are sharing now. Is it that Fabio is sharing it or Tinubu is sharing it? What a shame.
Barrister Williams,
what a shame.
We are out of time, so I guess we'll just have to watch. And I don't even know what to make of this, because hopefully when something comes out of this, we might not even need to report it. It will be in the public domain. Thank you, Barrister Williams, for making the time.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So you don't sound like it's your pleasure. All right. The conversation ends. The top of the hour brings the news update. After that, there seems to be an anti-corruption organization petitioning the CBN to halt allocations to River State, particularly local government allocations. Our state is always in the news, and we're always having these conversations. Please stay with us.